Hello everybody and welcome to Orms Air, the Orms podcast. Except you're not listening to the podcast. What you're listening to is a part of a full conversation that we've had. To listen to the full conversation, go wherever you listen to podcasts. All the links are in the description below. If you like what you hear, be sure to subscribe and you'll always be a part of the conversation. And we just touched on the warrior woman. We were just speaking about your sort of process with creating her. And most recently, I'm sure that those of us who follow you on social media will be aware of this because we've seen you post it quite a few times. But you've sort of, the shape of the warrior woman has sort of taken on that of the 19-year-old UCT student Uyinene Mrwetyana, who was brutally murdered and sort of opened up the doors and the space for people to express their rage and their sadness about the state of gender-based violence in our country at the moment. So I wanted to sort of ask you about that portrait that you created. It was absolutely beautiful. It really was. And I think that everybody who's sort of had the privilege to experience it in person will also, you know, sort of reiterate the same feelings. But I wanted to ask you, what was the sort of thought process with creating that portrait and then further on taking it to the UCT campus and allowing the students who obviously, you know, interacted with her in her everyday life to interact with this sort of memoriam of her?
Yeah, that was so spontaneous. That was initiated by Joshua Rubin. As he's a documentary photographer.
Yeah.
Also, he runs a charity in the Noon. He runs creative program at one of the schools there. He contacted me and he brought my attention to what was happening. I actually was unaware. I don't read news. So I heard something, but it was kind of distant. And then he brought my attention and I did my research. And there was also other murders that happened that week There was just Hess, and there was so many like hectic cases that we all kind of like, it was the biggest shock ever. And it was so much fear, and I felt so much fear. I felt so much fear for my daughter. I didn't want to be here. I didn't feel safe in my house. And he said, like, do you want to paint her portrait? And I felt like it was the only way for me to transcend that energy because it was so hectic. In, you know, those days, like none of us could do anything. You know, it was just like, just like what is happening? And I feel that making that portrait helped me to find, you know, go from anger, from fear, go to anger, and then from anger, go to action. And transcending from action to actually understanding that this is not, you know, this is just the whole system that is wrong, and we have to play, each one of us have to play its part, and just taking responsibility for whatever you can. So it was such a transformative process, and I think that's why the portrait is so powerful.
It really is.
Even I don't think it looks so much like Uyinene, but it was just, you know, it was just all of that, kind of all of that fear and anger, but transcended. And then Joshua was brave enough to bring it to UCT. He just said, I'm doing it. Like, we attached it to his car. It was a huge canvas, 1.5 meter by 1.5 meter. And he just went and just sat there next to it. And people came and signed it. And it's still at his house because we didn't know what to do with it, because I didn't want to use my name or use it for promotion, because that piece is, it's just, you know, it was so powerful, and it's not, I don't even want to auction it. Like it has to belong either to UCT or to her family. And it at the moment it's at his house, and I came to do another warrior woman at his house, and I saw it signed, and it's the most powerful thing I've ever seen in my life.
I can imagine.
Like, to have all of that energy of all those students at that time of a riot. It's really something. And it also shows that it can go from fear and anger to something that really changes people's lives. And we move on, but we move on as different people. Like, we go through pain. We are not hiding from it. We are going through it together. And that kind of helps and transforms the space. And I think it did for a lot of us. It did.
But I think that's the important part, and you've touched so beautifully on it, that the unity of it.
Yeah.
Where you come together and you share those feelings and you share those experiences, that's the powerful. That's where the healing happens, I think.
Yeah, we were scared. We were like, what if people take it the wrong way? Like we're trying to promote art. I don't know. It was so scary. And then we both thought, like we are acting out of love. We are acting out of good, we just want to say that we are with them together.
Yes, completely.
And not doing anything would be worse. Like because on that day, like could I post, I don't know, here I'm at my studio, or this is what I'm having for breakfast. Like that day, like you couldn't touch anything else. So that's why it kind of did get me a lot of attention. I got a lot of new followers, especially students and kids, which I'm so grateful for, and also it gives me more responsibility to post more about things like that, and to be a role model for those kids. So I've kind of it's been really a great and transformative experience, even that it started from such violence. But it kind of needed to happen. Like people have had enough. Like enough is enough, and I feel like we are ready to move and act.
Yes.